Thanks very much, Mark. Thanks to all of you for your testimony today. I'm going to lead off the questions and then yield to Senator Capito. There's another hearing going on in Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs on postal issues that are important, and I may have to slip out for a few minutes to go there as well. But as I mentioned in my opening statement, the bipartisan infrastructure law provided more than $55 billion for drinking water and wastewater improvements, the largest investment in the nation's history, which is in addition to the significant investments Congress has made through the American Rescue Plan. Even then, we knew that this was only a down payment, and the continued need is clearer now. This past April, EPA released its most recent drinking water infrastructure needs survey and assessment, which estimated that the 20-year national drinking water infrastructure need is a staggering $625 billion. That's $625 billion with a B. My question is really a question for each of you. The question, I'll start off, if I could, with Secretary Beiser, also known as President Beiser. Please share with us, if you would, some of your beliefs with respect to the bipartisan infrastructure, your experience with respect to the bipartisan infrastructure law's funding, what you've been able to achieve with that funding in North Carolina. Tell us a bit about the financial gap, if any, that remains in your efforts to address water infrastructure challenges. You've spoken to this already, but you can reiterate it if you will. Repetition is a good thing. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for that question. One of the things that we think about a lot in North Carolina is that people don't tend to think about water infrastructure unless they turn on their faucet and water doesn't come out, or they don't have clean water, they have to boil water, or if they can't flush a toilet, right? That is when we typically think about water infrastructure. And so as a result, we have underinvested for decades in our systems. And so this piece of legislation has provided a huge shot in the arm for us. You mentioned that the EPA needs survey is identifying, hundreds of billions of dollars in additional needs. That is true in North Carolina as well. So we have a 2017 study that we are in the process of updating right now because it doesn't take into account some hurricanes that we dealt with that estimated our needs at $17 to $26 billion just for our basic water infrastructure. So that's not including looking at the needs associated with upgrading our drinking water to deal with PFAS and protect public health. So that's quite significant. To give you another dollar figure, we were only able in 2023 so far to fund 9% of the $2.6 billion that have been requested by our local utilities thus far. And that number has held pretty steady for the past few years. We've had a record investment, which is wonderful. I mentioned the $1.9 billion from the American Rescue Plan on top of the wonderful funding we are getting from IIJA. And we are working hard to make sure that that funding is reaching every community that needs it in the state. And that means, as I mentioned earlier, not just rewarding those who are first in line, but making sure that we have strong technical assistance. North Carolina has a lot of small and rural communities, a lot of poor communities, and we want to make sure that that funding is reaching those communities as well.
I'm going to ask you to hold it right there. You said that's a lot. And you certainly got our attention. All right, Ms. Powell, same question, if you would.
Certainly. I think overall our experience in working with stakeholders to make sure that we got off to a good start with implementing the bipartisan infrastructure law has been a positive one. We understand that there had to be guidance provided up front for implementation, and certainly for the state of Maryland, they took some time to update their definition of disadvantaged communities to make sure that that funding is going to support those communities across the state. We are starting to see funding, as I shared in my testimony, from IIJA, and we are starting to see some principal forgiveness. But what we talked about in the hearing before was that we needed to see more funding in the form of grants and not loans. Many communities cannot afford loans, and for us, ourselves, we're financially constrained as well. It counts against the debt that we are taking out for our capital program. So there's still a funding gap there. We submitted a list of project requests worth $800 million, and we're projected to receive $105 million. So we're still shy of the need. I think it has been very good that we've been able to assist customers that need assistance getting their bills back in good standing from impacts during the pandemic, but those impacts existed before the pandemic and continue to persist. The last thing I'll stress, if I could, is just we talk a lot about investment in infrastructure. We can't forget about the people that run the facilities and fix the pipes. We also have to invest in workforce.
Good. Thank you very much for those words. Mr. Volk, and then I'll turn it over to Senator Capito.
Thank you, Chairman. Our SRF group has been working very hard to navigate through the new rules and regulations to get the money out as best as they can. Visiting with them in the last couple weeks, getting a lot of the money out to all sorts of systems, and I have in my written testimony just a snapshot of those systems, both on the clean water side and on the drinking water side, from our very small up to our largest community of Fargo.
All right, thank you. Senator Capito.